Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Josh Taylor versus Ekow Essuman fight. And so if you are new around here and you have not yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So it is the return of Josh Taylor, and he has taken a arguably quite significant step down in opponent, to be completely honest, but well, that's on paper. The more you kind of go in depth and the more you look at it, maybe it's not too much of a step down realistically. I mean, obviously he's coming off the loss to Jack Catterall, which was in their highly anticipated rematch. And, you know, like Jack Catterall, Josh Taylor's had to move a different way of his career. When you have a rivalry which, you know, really excites fans and really makes fans, you know, interested in them as a fighter, it's hard to then move away from that and create yourself a bit of a name. You know, Josh Taylor had already done that. Obviously, he's been undisputed champion and he's always had that name about him. But of course, he's the one coming off the loss. Obviously, it's not maybe not aged the best because Jack Catterall went on to lose to Arnold Barboza, who of course went on to then lose to Teofimo. But Josh Taylor now has to rebuild in his career, and again, he's going to have to move away from the rivalry and try and keep fans entertained with him. And he's now fighting an opponent, he's welcoming an opponent up to Scotland. And to be fair, I believe this is the first time that Josh Taylor's fought in Scotland for a little bit at least now. I think the first Jack Catterall fight might have been, but it's definitely going to be at least a bit of a good homecoming, I believe, for Josh Taylor. And Ekow Essuman is going to be a tough opponent, and it will be definitely interesting to see if he can outpower Josh Taylor as the engine in which he is known as. And, you know, Josh Taylor, of course, has been a great fighter for England and for, well, not for England, for the UK, as, you know, not too many UK based fighters go on to become world champions, let alone undisputed in a really tough weight category. Obviously, you know, you look at the record and there's some good names on there. I mean, Jose Ramirez at the time was a very good name. He was undefeated and was really looking good. And to be fair, Josh Taylor really destroyed Ramirez that fight, and, you know, knocked him down twice and looked really good. And like I say, to be fair, there's been nobody that's been able to do that to Jose Ramirez since, even though, yes, he's gone on to go and lose to Arnold Barboza and Devin Haney since then. Neither of them have been able to really cause any kind of damage realistically and really cause any much of pain or, you know, being close to realistically dropping Jose Ramirez. So it is impressive how Josh Taylor was able to fight him and dissect him and, you know, have so much success in close and land them short shots and look really good from it. But in more recent times, he is coming off two defeats. The first one being to Teofimo Lopez, where this was a Teofimo who was on top form, and it was a Teofimo in which, you know, we weren't entirely sure what version we were going to be getting of Teofimo. Like, to be fair, most of the time we're not, but this was a Teofimo who was firing on all cylinders and was looking excellent. His movement was looking unmatched, and he was really hard to land on. So, you know, it was gonna be a tough performance for Josh Taylor, and it was, and he struggled, and he just couldn't, you know, get going. And it's no real surprise that, you know, he went to go and fight in America and he just didn't get things his way at all, and he struggled in that fight. And Teofimo did look ultimately much better, and, you know, that was the end of the undisputed kind of campaign of his. But then he went on to obviously go on to fight the longer waited rematch against Jack Catterall, which, like I say, was very much longer waited. Perhaps, I don't know if Josh Taylor was, I doubt he was scared, but I think he was definitely wanting, you know, he definitely saw Jack Catterall after the first fight as a risk, and he wanted to at least get, you know, one big fight as, you know, the world champion in which he was, against another big name in America before, you know, another big payday before going back and trying to rematch Jack Catterall, which, you know, on a business standpoint, you don't really, you kind of understand. And obviously then when he did go on to fight Jack Catterall, he did just look a bit of a step behind, and, you know, he didn't really set up his shots. His jab, which in the past had looked very good, was pretty much non-existent, and he had bits of success at times landing with singular shots, but he looked unsure at times. His feints weren't really thrown with intent, and when he actually was throwing again, that wasn't really thrown with intent either. And so, if this was a Josh Taylor of previous, where he was able to knock down opponents and knock out opponents in close with short shots, catching them coming in very nicely, I think he could have had a lot of success and been able to possibly have made easy work with somebody like Ekow Essuman. But this is a different Josh Taylor. Yes, this is for the vacant WBO International Welterweight title. There's no surprise realistically that there is a title on the line for this fight because it is two reputable names and it is a main event with Queensberry. There's no real surprise, and it is the end of the, kind of run that Queensberry and DAZN have been on so far. When they first announced that Queensberry was going to be with DAZN, they put out that free fight, shows just to really excite the fans, and this is the last one that they put out, and it's been, the first one, Hrgovic Joyce, maybe didn't quite live up to expectations, but I thought Kakache Wood was a really good fight and was very entertaining as a contest. So I think that did live up to expectations, and hopefully we'll have this one that will. Ekow is, somebody who I've seen fight on a couple of occasions. That fight versus Owen Cooper I watched live, and that was, arguably one of the fights of the year. It was really dramatic, knockdowns on both sides, ending up with Ekow knocking out Owen Cooper quite devastatingly into the last few rounds. But, Ekow's definitely just been deserving of this shot. Yes, he lost on the come up to Harry Scarf, but, Harry Scarf's not a bad fighter. He knows how to fight and he knows how to win when necessarily. Yes, he didn't get the nod against Conor Walker, but he's not a bad fighter. He did struggle against Chukadzian as well, but again, I don't believe he's a bad fighter and he can fight well. And I think Ekow was not fighting at his best that night, and I don't think Scarf style really suited him. But in otherwise, he has fought a long list of kind of British level fighters, and going from his fight against Chris Jenkins back in a few years ago now, he's gone from that, names like Antwi as well. His past couple fights against Cooper and Vaughan have both been 10 rounders against opponents in which, yes, have been arguably British level fighters who have been coming up, but he's succeeded and he's looked good in them fights. And in that last fight versus Vaughan, it was definitely similarly to the Owen Cooper fight. It was just a bit of a war where it was two guys just really letting their hands go and throwing. But Ekow knows how to fight 10 rounds. He's probably one of the best fighters on a domestic level that can fight a 10-round distance really well, and he knows how to utilize his power well and to maintain his power and just go to war and getting close and really force you to slug it out, whilst also being able to take shots at the same time and being able to manage shots that he does take. He doesn't really take too much that clean. Yes, he did get dropped versus Cooper, but that was quite a a sudden, maybe flash knockdown, and he was able to recover quite well from that, and of course going to get the knockout himself. So he does have power. Like I say, he's able to manage it and maintain his stamina throughout the entire fight. He's a pressure fighter, coming forwards, will get you up against the ropes, and will always let his hands go, and will always seemingly land at some point when he is letting his hands go, when he has you up against the ropes. And he's definitely going to be interesting to see if Josh Taylor can deal with that. Yes, I know, like I say, that Josh Taylor has been an undisputed world champion. He's definitely fought at the world level, and he's definitely fought much better opposition than Ekow Essuman. But Josh Taylor, if that's the Josh Taylor that we saw against Catterall, if we're going to see a repeat of that, then Ekow could definitely have success. Like I say, the jab looked, well, not really there half the time, but when he was throwing it, it did look a lot weaker and a lot, less intense throwing behind it. And I don't necessarily know if he's if he's in the best of spaces mentally, and if Ekow puts it on him for the first few rounds, then I think he could, back up, retreat, and not be able to counter, and not be able to throw the same level of intent, and just mentally struggle a little bit. That's why I think Ekow Essuman is going to be able to win via TKO in round 10. Yes, it's quite a dramatic fall from grace, I suppose, from Josh Taylor. It's quite a sudden one as well, going from the highs in which he had versus Jose Ramirez to then suddenly having a close fight with Jack Catterall, to then losing badly at a world level, to then losing badly at a fringe world level, to then losing badly at a, arguably European, if not a little bit higher level. And, it is quite sudden. It is back to back to back. but if you're mentally not as strong as what you once were, then it's going to be difficult to really force yourself to get back there. And again, like I say, I think Essuman is in a very good position, and I think his style is going to be directly what he can cause a lot of problems to Josh Taylor with. Yes, perhaps if Essuman goes on to fight a more higher level, world level, or fringe world level type of fighter, then he realistically could struggle a bit more. And I don't necessarily believe Ekow is perhaps skilled enough unless he has a fighter that's really going to suit his style and go toe to toe with him. I don't necessarily know if he's good enough to become a world champion, but as possible matchups that he could have next, Dukadzian could be an option. It seems like, Harry Scarf went on to go fight him. He fought Ennis and in the rematch had a close fight there, so perhaps that could be made into another fight. If not Santian, he's in a bit of no man's land at the moment, and he would definitely stand toe to toe with Ekow Essuman. Yes, it's another top ranked fighter, and I don't necessarily know if Santian really knows anything about Essuman at the moment, but I think that would be two styles that would definitely gel and definitely make for an entertaining fight. Or, throwing a possible matchup out there. Speaking about Catterall a lot, he's just had his fight against Eubank announced, and that's up at welterweight. And this is of course Josh Taylor's first campaign at welterweight as well. So that could possibly make sense. I mean, I think the Eubank Catterall fight is a good domestic matchup. I don't necessarily know how well it will sell, but it could do decent numbers with the Eubank name looking quite good at the moment. But it's perhaps the end of the career for Catterall if he does lose. But at the same time, moving up into the welterweight division, I don't think this contest is going to get either of them into a fringe world level kind of guy, a guy at an interim world championship level. So it's a bit of a no man's land type of fight. If for the winner of this one, perhaps Essuman could go and slide in there for the winner, or even the loser, to be completely honest. But a few British welterweights are in a bit of an interesting position at the moment, and I don't think it helps that we've got the fact that the guys like Teofimo, Haney, Garcia, Romero, all in the welterweight division now. I think it makes it difficult for these British guys to, come and get a chance, get a shot at a world title because I don't feel like they're getting recognised anywhere near at the same level as these other American names. But a couple of other fights which I'm not going to give a prediction for. I'm just excited for matchups just for you guys to watch out for. The co-main event, Moses Itauma versus Mike Balogun, is a good matchup. It's a good fight. I'm excited to see Moses Itauma on this one. Obviously, he's riding such a high, being voted Ring Magazine Prospect of the Year last year, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what he has to offer coming into this fight. It's a bit of a takeover fight, but it's definitely a world, fringe world level type of opponent. Realistically, I mean, he did lose via stoppage to Gassiev, and that was quite early on. So I feel like Ed Tarmer's definitely going to want to go along that route. But it's another good fight. I don't want Itauma to be moved along too quickly, and I don't feel like he needs to be. So it is smart for them to put him in against somebody like a Balogun. So we will have to be able to see if he can be able to stop him, and if he does in emphatic fashion like he did Dempsey McKean. And also an all Scottish affair with two of the best Scottish fighters around at the moment and on the come up in Lee McGregor versus Nathan Collins. Lee has had to kind of go and become an away fighter type, but he's still winning, and he's coming off a win versus Isaac Lowe on the Fury Usyk rematch undercard, so that was a very good win for him, and he's now showcasing he can still fight at a high level. Obviously, he's not getting the same backing that he once was when he was en route to, fighting for world championships and stuff like that, because he did lose to Ayala and he lost quite badly in that fight. But he's seemingly, making a bit of a resurgence, and I don't think we've seen Nathan Collins at too high of a level yet. So we'll have to wait and see. I think it's definitely a good, like I say, all Scottish affair. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.